What happens when an unyielding spirit collides with absolute power? She defied a man who commanded shadows, a mafia boss accustomed to obedience. Her courage wasn't just admirable. It ignited an obsession that would shatter his world and redefine hers. The big question is, would her defiance be her doom or her ultimate triumph? The private dining room at Celestial Palace emptied in 8 seconds flat. Amara counted, watching men in tailored suits stumble over each other to reach the door. One dropped his phone. No one stopped to retrieve it. It clattered against polished wood, the sound unnaturally loud in the thickening silence. Min Jae-sung hadn't raised his voice. He'd simply lifted one finger from the lacquered table. Index, barely a centimeter, and the room had evacuated like air from a punctured lung. All except her. Amara remained standing at the head of the table, serving dish still in her gloved hands, chin lifted. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice stayed level. "You asked for the chef. I'm here." She watched his eyes shift to her. Not quickly. Min Jae-sung did nothing quickly. His gaze moved with the deliberation of a man who'd learned that speed suggested desperation, and desperate men didn't survive in his world. He was younger than she'd expected. Early 30s, maybe. Sharp-featured, with the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers, but looked lethal in person. Dark hair swept back from his forehead, not a strand out of place. Eyes like black ice, dark enough to drown in, cold enough to burn. "The galbi Jim," she continued, setting the dish down with deliberate care though her hands wanted to shake, "is traditionally braised for 3 hours. Yours has been cooking for 5 minutes. The meat is still raw. The vegetables haven't even been julienned." She met his stare without flinching. "You asked me to cater this dinner. I'm telling you it's not ready. If you want to eat in 10 minutes, order takeout. If you want what I promised you, you'll wait 2.5 hours. Silence stretched between them like a blade. "Miss Okafor." Her name in his mouth sounded different. The slight Korean accent turned the syllables into something almost musical. "Almost. When I set a timeline, people meet it. Then you should have given me a realistic timeline." His head tilted. A fraction. Just enough that the man standing behind him, built like a concrete wall, with silver streaking his temples, shifted his weight forward. Amara's pulse hammered against her throat, but she kept her spine straight. She'd known this dinner was a test from the moment his people had walked into Ife's table 3 days ago with an offer that was half opportunity, half threat. Cater a private dinner for Min Jae-sung and his associates. Compensation generous. Refusal inadvisable. She'd spent 72 hours preparing, researching, perfecting a fusion menu that would prove she belonged in his world. Or at least, that she was too valuable to eliminate. Then she'd arrived to find they'd changed the schedule. Demanded she serve in 90 minutes instead of 4 hours. A test. Obviously a test. "The jollof rice alone," she said, "needs 45 minutes. The suya requires proper marination time, which I've already completed, but the grilling is an art. Rush it and you get leather." She gestured to the dish before him. "Same with the galbi. You want me to serve you mediocre food? Fine. I'll leave now, and you can tell everyone that Ife's table couldn't deliver. Or you can wait, and I'll give you something that will have your guests talking about this dinner for months." Then Min Jae-sung smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. His mouth curved, but nothing else moved. Not his eyes, not the sharp angles of his face. It was the smile of a man deciding whether to be amused or lethal. "In 10 years, he said softly, "no one has ever told me to wait. Then you've been hiring the wrong chefs." The words escaped before she could stop them. Before her rational mind could scream that you don't challenge Min Jae-sung, that restaurant owners had been burned out for less, that Grandma Ife's legacy wasn't worth dying over. The concrete wall behind him moved. Min's hand lifted, different gesture this time, palm out, and his guard froze mid-step. "Your name," he said, voice carrying the precise diction of someone who'd learned English as a 3rd or 4th language and perfected it, "is Amara Okafor. 29 years old. Owner of Ife's Table on West 142nd Street. Open 4 years, rated 4.8 stars, known for jollof rice that has a 6-month waiting list and suya that food critics write sonnets about." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "You inherited the restaurant from your grandmother. The building, however, you're leasing. Contract expires in 8 months. Your landlord wants to sell to a developer. You've been fighting the sale for 6 months." Ice crystallized in her veins. "You open at 11, he continued, close at 10. You're there every day. No days off. Your sous chef is your cousin, Marcus, good with a knife, better with seasoning, has a temper that's going to get him in trouble. You live above the restaurant. Second floor, 2 bedrooms. Your mother still lives in Lagos. She calls every Sunday. You always answer, no matter how busy you are. His eyes tracked over her face like he was memorizing it. You run the books yourself. The margins are thin. Very thin. 1 bad month and you're underwater. Amara's hands trembled now, a visible shake she couldn't control. You've been watching me. I've been thorough. That's not thorough. That's stalking. That's due diligence, Miss Okafor. I make it a policy to know the people in my territory. His smile sharpened, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Curiosity, maybe. Or hunger. Especially those brave enough, or foolish enough, to refuse me. She forced her hands still. Forced herself to breathe. I already told your men no. 3 times. I'm not paying protection money. Not to you, not to anyone. I'm not here to collect protection money. Then what do you want? Right now. He gestured to the raw galbi before him. Dinner. In 2.5 hours, as you specified. His gaze never left her face. After that, we'll discuss why you're the only business owner on 142nd Street who thinks she can operate without my blessing. 3 weeks later, the black Mercedes appeared. Amara noticed it on a Tuesday, parked across from Aoife's table during the lunch rush. Tinted windows, diplomatic plates, idling engine. It stayed for 47 minutes. She timed it, then glided away like smoke. Wednesday it returned. Same spot. Same hour. This time it stayed through dinner service. Thursday she marched across the street, righteous fury burning through her caution, ready to confront whoever was watching her. The car was empty. Friday, she came in early to prep the morning's puff-puff dough and found the car already there, engine cold. It had been there all night. You need to report this, Marcus said, cleaver pausing mid-chop. Onions sat in perfect, identical cubes before him, the cutting board unstained despite the volume he'd processed. This is harassment. To who? The police? Amara laughed, brittle and sharp. She rolled dough with more force than necessary, flour dusting her dark forearms. Half the precinct probably works for him. You don't know it's him. But she did. The dinner at Celestial Palace had ended at 1 in the morning. Min Jae-sung had eaten every dish she'd prepared, methodical and silent, while his associates had returned and watched her like she was a curiosity in a zoo. When she'd presented the final course, chin-chin dusted with cinnamon sugar alongside sujeongwa, a Korean cinnamon punch, he'd set down his chopsticks and studied her for 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Then he'd said, "Thank you for dinner, Miss Okafor. I'll be in touch." She'd told herself it was over. A test passed, a debt settled, a professional interaction concluded. The Mercedes said otherwise. Maybe he just likes the neighborhood, Marcus offered, not even convincing himself. Amara said nothing. She shaped the dough into perfect spheres, hands moving with the muscle memory Grandma Aoife had beaten into her over 1,000 Saturday mornings. Cooking is meditation, her grandmother had said in Yoruba, fingers guiding Amara's through the rhythm of kneading. If your mind is troubled, your food will know. Her mind was definitely troubled. The Mercedes stayed all weekend. Monday, it was joined by a second car, silver Lexus, different plates, same intimidating presence. They bookend Aoife's table like quotation marks. Tuesday morning, Amara's landlord called. Good news, Mr. Chin said, his usual terseness replaced by something almost giddy. The developer withdrew their offer. Your lease is safe. I'm even thinking about extending it. 10 years, same rate. What do you say? Amara's hand tightened on her phone until the case creaked. What changed? Changed? Nothing changed. I realized you're a good tenant. Reliable. The neighborhood needs businesses like yours. Mr. Chin, 3 weeks ago you told me you'd be homeless and broke before you passed up the developer's offer. Silence. Then quieter. Things change, Amara. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. She wanted to scream. Instead, she said, "Thank you," and hung up. The suya burned that day. First time in 4 years. Wednesday brought flowers. Not delivered. Just there when she opened up, a massive arrangement of birds of paradise and white roses sitting beside the door. No card. No note. Just flowers that probably cost more than her monthly utilities. Okay, that's actually scary, Marcus said, eyeing the arrangement like it might explode. We need to do something. Like what? I don't know. Leave the city? Change your name? Witness protection. Amara laughed despite herself. For flowers. For whatever comes after the flowers. Thursday, her distributor called. Hey, about your meat order? I'm upgrading you to premium cuts. Same price. Why? Because, he paused. Look, someone made me an offer I couldn't refuse, okay? Just accept the good fortune. Friday, the health inspector who'd been threatening to downgrade her rating over a non-existent rodent issue suddenly decided everything was perfect. 5 stars. Glowing report. Saturday, a food blogger with 2 million followers posted about Aoife's table, complete with professional photos Amara had never authorized. The post went viral. By Sunday, they had reservations booked 8 weeks out. Monday, Min Jae-sung walked through her door. He came alone at 2:47 p.m., the dead zone between lunch and dinner when Amara usually handled paperwork. She was in the kitchen, inventory clipboard in hand, when Marcus appeared in the doorway, face ashen. He's here. She didn't have to ask who. Min sat at table 7, the corner booth, back to the wall, commanding sight lines to both the entrance and the kitchen. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her industrial stove, crisp white shirt open at the collar. No tie. No guards visible, though Amara would bet money they were nearby. He was reading her menu like it was a legal contract. Amara untied her apron, smoothed down her braids. She'd had them redone yesterday, black and gold threaded through, falling to mid-back, and walked out. We're closed, she said. He looked up. Something shifted in his expression when he saw her, there and gone too quickly to name. Your sign says you open at 5. For customers. You're not a customer. I have money. You have food. That makes me a customer. You're a cancer. A blight. A man who thinks he can buy anything, including people's lives. She crossed her arms. Get out of my restaurant. Sit down, Miss Okafor. This is my restaurant. I'll stand if I want. Sit. The word was silk over steel. Please. The please surprised her enough that she pulled out the opposite chair. Didn't sit, just held the back of it, maintaining her exit route. The flowers were too much, he said. She blinked. Excuse me. The flowers. Yunho suggested them. He has a romantic streak. Min set down the menu. I told him you'd find them invasive. He insisted they were gentlemanly. I should have trusted my instincts. Your instincts, Amara repeated slowly. About which stalking gestures I'd prefer? About how to approach someone who doesn't respond to the usual methods. He leaned back, studying her. You intrigue me, Miss Okafor. I don't care. You should. When I'm intrigued, I'm generous. When I'm annoyed, I'm considerably less so. Is that a threat? It's a fact. He gestured to the empty restaurant. Your lease. Your distributors. Your health rating. Your newfound social media fame. These aren't coincidences. The blood drained from her face. You did all that. I smoothed obstacles. Made your life easier. Showed you what cooperation with me could accomplish. I didn't ask for any of it. No, he agreed. You didn't. That's what makes you interesting. He stood, buttoning his jacket with precise movements. Most people in your position would have come to me by now. Thanked me. Offered something in return. You're angry instead. Why? Because it's not real. The words burst out, months of frustration compressed into fury. None of it's real. I didn't earn the good review, you bought it. The distributor didn't choose to upgrade me. You forced him. I'm not succeeding. I'm being moved around like a chess piece in whatever game you're playing. You're succeeding, he corrected, with help. There's no shame in that. There's shame in being owned. His jaw tightened. First real emotion she'd seen crack his facade. I don't own you. Then what do you call this? Investment. Protection. Interest. Interest in what? He moved then, circling the table with predatory grace. Not fast, never fast, but inevitable. Like a tide coming in. Amara held her ground, even as her instincts screamed to retreat. He stopped a foot away. Close enough that she had to tilt her head to maintain eye contact. Close enough to smell his cologne, something expensive and woody, cedar and bergamot. You stood in my private dining room, he said quietly, and told me to wait. In 10 years, no one has done that. Not my associates. Not my rivals. Not the politicians in my pocket or the business owners in my territory. His eyes searched her face. You weren't posturing. You weren't trying to impress me. You were protecting your work. Your integrity. The legacy your grandmother left you. So I have spent a decade surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear. Who compromise their principles for my approval. Who see me as a tool to be used or a threat to be feared. His voice dropped lower. You see me as an inconvenience. You are an inconvenience. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Yes, I am. And somehow, Miss Okafor, that makes me want to inconvenience you more. He left without ordering. Without looking back. The Mercedes pulled away from the curb 30 seconds later. Amara stood frozen in her empty restaurant, heart hammering, skin electric where he'd stood too close. Marcus emerged from the kitchen. What just happened? I have no idea. But that was a lie. She knew exactly what had happened. He'd declared his intentions. The question was, what was she going to do about it? The Mercedes disappeared for 3 days. Amara told herself she was relieved. Told herself the knot in her stomach was anxiety fading, not disappointment. Told herself she didn't glance at table 7 every time the door opened. On the 4th day, an invitation arrived. Cream cardstock, her name in elegant calligraphy. Inside, a single sentence in Korean and English. Your presence is requested for a discussion of mutual benefit. An address in Koreatown. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. No RSVP instructions. No phone number. Just the absolute confidence that she would come. Amara threw it in the trash. At 7:45 p.m. the next evening, she stood outside a nondescript building on West 32nd Street. Invitation clutched in her hand, cursing her own curiosity. The door opened before she could knock. Yunho, the silver-haired guard from Celestial Palace, stood in the doorway. Miss Okafor. He's expecting you. I didn't confirm I was coming. You're here. Fair point. The interior was nothing like she'd expected. Not a warehouse or ominous lair, but a beautifully appointed office building. Hardwood floors. Original art on the walls, mostly Korean ink paintings, but she spotted what looked like a genuine Yinka Schonebert photograph. Subtle lighting that made everything feel warm without being soft. Yunho led her to an elevator. Press the button for the top floor. He's in a good mood, Yunho offered as they ascended. Hasn't killed anyone in 6 weeks. Amara's head snapped toward him. He stared straight ahead, face impassive. That was a joke, he added after a moment. Was it? Mostly. The elevator dinged. Doors opened onto a penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Desk at one end, sitting area at the other, a full bar between them. Tasteful. Expensive. Surprisingly modern for a man who seemed to trade in old-world intimidation. Min stood at the windows, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the city lights. Miss Okafor, he said without turning. Thank you for coming. I'm here for 5 minutes. Then I'm leaving. Then I'll be efficient. He turned, crossed to the bar. Would you like a drink? No. He poured himself 2 fingers of something amber. Your restaurant is being targeted. Every cell in her body went cold. By who? A developer named Richard So. He wants your entire block. He had an agreement with your landlord until I discouraged it. Now he's pursuing other methods. What methods? The usual. Harassment. False complaints. Bot reviews. He's already started spreading rumors that you violated health codes, that your meat sources are questionable, that you've had vermin issues. Min sipped his drink. None of it's true, obviously. But truth is less important than repetition. Amara's hands curled into fists. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm offering you a solution. Let me guess, come work for you. Pay you. Owe you. Partner with me. He set down his glass. Keep your restaurant. Keep your independence. I handled So. I handle anyone else who comes after your business. In exchange, you do one thing. What thing? Cook for me. Once a week. Private dinners. No guests. Just you and me. She stared at him. That's it? That's your offer? I cook you dinner once a week, and you protect my entire business. Yes. Why? Because I enjoy your food. That's not a reason. That's not, she gestured helplessly. You could hire any chef in the city. Michelin-starred chefs who would beg for your business. Why me? He moved closer. Not crowding, Min never crowded, but closing the distance until she could see the flecks of deep brown in his dark eyes, the fine scar at his temple, the exact way his jaw tightened when he was choosing his words carefully. Do you know what my world looks like, Miss Okafor? His voice was quiet. Intimate. Everyone wants something from me. Power. Money. Protection. Everyone has an angle. Everyone is playing a game. He paused. You're the first person in a decade who's wanted nothing from me except to be left alone. That night at Celestial Palace, you didn't try to impress me. You told me to wait because the food wasn't ready. You cared more about your work than my approval. So this is ego. You want what you can't have. This is hunger. The word landed between them like a stone. For something honest. Real. Uncomplicated by fear or greed or strategy. His gaze held hers. You cook like someone who believes food matters. Like every dish is a promise you're keeping to someone you loved. That's rare. That's worth protecting. Amara's heart hammered. You're a criminal. A mobster. You hurt people. Yes. You've probably killed people. Yes. And you want me to cook you dinner. Once a week. That's genuinely what you want. Yes. No strings. No expectations. No. She waved a hand between them. No whatever this is? I can't promise no strings, Miss Okafor. Everything has strings. But I can promise honesty. He stepped back, giving her space to breathe. I find you fascinating. I want to know you better. Dinner seems like a civilized place to start. Civilized, she repeated, tasting the irony. The mob boss wants to be civilized. Even monsters get hungry. Something in the way he said it, not self-deprecating, not apologetic, just matter of fact, made her pause. She'd expected manipulation. Threats disguised as offers. Instead, he was laying his cards on the table with unsettling directness. And if I say no? Then I say no to protecting your restaurant. So we'll win. You'll be evicted within 3 months. Your grandmother's legacy becomes luxury condos. His expression didn't change. I don't make threats, Miss Okafor. I'm simply showing you the board as it exists. That's still a threat. It's reality. I'm offering to change it. Amara closed her eyes. Thought of Grandma Aoife, who'd worked 3 jobs to open that restaurant. Who'd taught Amara that food was love made tangible, that feeding people mattered more than profit, that their little corner of Harlem was sacred ground. She thought of Marcus, whose entire livelihood depended on Aoife's table. Of her servers, her dishwasher, the musicians who played Friday nights. Of the regulars who came every week, who'd watched her grow up behind that counter. She thought of Min Jae-sung's eyes, dark and hungry and far too interested. 1 dinner a week, she said, opening her eyes. 2 hours maximum. At a neutral location of my choosing. And you eat what I cook. No requests, no substitutions, no complaints. Agreed. And if you touch me without permission, the deal is off. Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Respect? Agreed. And I can end this arrangement any time. No retaliation. No consequences. He hesitated. First time she'd seen him uncertain. If you end it, I end my protection. That's fair. But I won't actively harm you. You have my word. Your word. She laughed brittle. What's a gangster's word worth? Everything. The sudden steel in his voice made her breath catch. I've built my reputation on keeping promises. When I give my word, Miss Okafor, it's binding. More binding than any contract you could write. She believed him. God help her, she believed him. First dinner is Saturday, she said. 8 p.m. I'll text you the address. You don't have my number. Then I guess you'd better give it to me. For the first time since she'd met him, Min Jae-sung laughed. Real laughter, startled and genuine, that transformed his face from dangerous to almost boyish. He pulled a card from his pocket, handed it to her. Their fingers brushed, accidental, electric. Saturday, he confirmed. I'll look forward to it. Amara left before she could change her mind. Before she could examine too closely why her skin still tingled where they'd touched, why her pulse hadn't returned to normal, why some reckless part of her was already planning the menu. In the elevator, Yunho gave her an appraising look. You're either very brave or very stupid. Can I be both? In my experience, people who challenge him end up one of 2 ways, dead or devoted. He pressed the lobby button. I'm curious which you'll be. I'll be neither, Amara said firmly. I'll be free. Yunho smiled, sad and knowing. That's what they all say. Saturday arrived wrapped in October chill and Amara's mounting dread. She'd chosen a community center in Fort Greene, neutral ground, public enough to feel safe, private enough for conversation. The kitchen was small but functional, and she'd arrived 3 hours early to prep. Egusi soup, slow-cooked until the melon seeds broke down into velvet. Jollof rice with the perfect balance of tomato and spice, each grain separate and flavorful. Plantains fried to caramelized perfection. And because she was feeling vindictive, because she wanted to remind him that she was the one with power here, at least in this arena, she'd made kimchi jjigae, Korean stew fragrant with gochugaru and doenjang, the kind that required technique and intuition to get right. A fusion menu. A challenge. A statement. I see your world and mine, and I can blend them better than you can control me. Min arrived at exactly 8 p.m. He came alone, dressed down in dark jeans and a black sweater that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, but looked effortlessly casual. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. Miss Okafor. Mr. Min. Jae-sung, he corrected. If we're doing this, use my name. We're not doing anything. I'm cooking. You're eating. But she said Jae-sung, anyway, tasting the syllables. They felt foreign and intimate on her tongue. He noticed. His eyes tracked to her mouth for half a second before moving away. The meal was silent at first. Amara served each dish, explained nothing, waited. She'd learned from Grandma Aoife that food spoke its own language. If you had to explain it, you'd already failed. Jae-sung ate methodically. Tasted each element. Combined flavors. His face revealed nothing, but his body language shifted. Shoulders relaxing, posture softening, the perpetual tension melting away. When he reached the kimchi jjigae, he paused. My mother used to make this. Amara's hands stilled on her water glass. Used to. She passed. 10 years ago. He took another spoonful, chewed slowly. This is better than hers. Don't tell her ghost I said that. What happened to her? Cancer. Quick and vicious. His voice stayed level, but something haunted moved behind his eyes. She made me promise 2 things before she died. Never forget where I came from, and never become the kind of man who uses power without purpose. Anne, did you keep those promises? One of them. The admission hung between them, raw and unexpected. Amara found herself leaning forward despite her better judgment. Which one? I remember exactly where I came from. A 1-bedroom apartment in Flushing. Roaches in the walls. My father worked 18-hour days at a dry cleaner and still couldn't make rent. I watched him bow and scrape to people who treated him like furniture. Jae-sung's jaw tightened. I swore I'd never bow to anyone. So you made others bow instead. Yes. That's not purpose. That's revenge. Maybe. He met her eyes. Or maybe purpose and revenge aren't as different as you think. Amara wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he'd corrupted his mother's wish into something poisonous. But she thought of Grandma Aoife, who'd fed Amara stories along with food. Who'd told her about Lagos, about leaving everything behind for a dream, about the way Americans looked through her like she was invisible. Grandma Aoife had spent 40 years proving she existed. That she mattered. That her food, her culture, her presence was valuable. Was that so different from what Jae-sung had done? Just with different weapons? Tell me about your grandmother, Jae-sung said, as if reading her thoughts. So she did. The words spilled out easier than expected. She told him about Sunday dinners that lasted 4 hours, about learning to pound yam until her arms ached, about the way Grandma Aoife had named the restaurant after herself because, if I don't claim space, no one will give it to me. She told him about the first time she'd cooked jollof rice alone and burned it so badly they had to air out the apartment for 2 days. About Grandma Aoife's laugh, huge and infectious and unapologetic. About the way she'd died, suddenly and far too soon, leaving Amara with a restaurant, a legacy, and no idea how to carry it. I'm terrified every day that I'm failing her, Amara admitted. That I'm not good enough. That someone will take what she built and turn it into something meaningless. That won't happen. You don't know that. I do. His certainty was absolute. Because you're still fighting. Still protecting it. That's what matters. Even if it means making deals with criminals? Especially then. He pushed his empty bowl away. Purity is a luxury, Miss Okafor. Your grandmother understood that. She left Lagos for New York knowing she'd have to compromise, adapt, survive in ways that weren't comfortable. You're doing the same. Don't compare us. We're nothing alike. Aren't we? We're both building empires from nothing. Both protecting what we love. Both willing to be ruthless when necessary. He leaned back, studying her. The only difference is you pretend your hands are clean. My hands are clean. You're sitting across from a criminal. Sharing a meal. Making an arrangement that benefits you. Your hands are covered in the same dirt as mine. You just wash them more carefully. Amara's breath caught, fury and recognition warring in her chest. That's not fair. It's honest. He stood, began clearing dishes with practiced efficiency that surprised her. You wanted no strings, no expectations. That includes the expectation that I'll pretend to be something I'm not. Or that you are. She watched him work. This man who commanded an empire, who made people disappear, who'd probably killed with those same hands that now carefully stacked bowls. There was something surreal about it. something that made her head spin. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked quietly. "And don't tell me it's about the food." He paused at the sink, didn't turn around. "Because for 2 hours, I want to be a man eating dinner. Not a boss. Not a criminal. Not a weapon." His voice dropped lower. "Because you look at me like I'm human. Dangerous and flawed and human. And I've forgotten what that feels like." The vulnerability in his admission cracked something in her chest. "Next week," she found herself saying, "I'll make akara and tteokbokki." He turned then, and the smile on his face was soft enough to break her heart. The dinners became a ritual. Every Saturday, 8 p.m., different location each time. Amara cooked. Jae-sung ate. They talked. Not about his business, that was an unspoken boundary. Not about the protection he provided, the problems he solved, the invisible hand that kept Ife's table safe. Instead, they talked about everything else. Music. Books. The difference between Lagos and Seoul street food. The way cities sounded at 3 a.m. Childhood memories. Dreams deferred. The precise amount of Scotch bonnet peppers required to make a grown man cry. On week 3, Jae-sung brought wine. Week 4, he arrived early and helped prep vegetables with startling competence. Week 5, he made her laugh so hard she nearly dropped a pot of stew. On week 6, Amara realized she looked forward to Saturdays. That terrified her more than anything. "You're playing with fire," Marcus warned, watching her pack up her cooking supplies. "Everyone knows about these dinners. People are talking. Let them talk." "Amara." He grabbed her arm, gentle but insistent. "He's not your friend. He's not safe. Men like him don't change. I know what he is. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're starting to forget." She pulled away, angry because he was right. She was forgetting. Or rather, she was learning things that made forgetting easier. Like the way Jae-sung's face softened when she told stories about Grandma Ife. The way he listened, truly listened, without interrupting or dismissing. The way he'd mentioned, casually, that he'd donated to the community center they used, enough to keep it running another 5 years. "For selfish reasons," he'd said when she'd confronted him. "I want to keep eating your food." But his eyes had said something different. Week 7 brought the first crack in their careful equilibrium. They were in a Brooklyn studio apartment Jae-sung owned, but never used, cooking together for the first time. Amara had challenged him to make proper jollof rice, and he'd accepted with the focused intensity he brought to everything. "More tomatoes," she instructed, standing behind him at the stove. "And stop stirring so much. You're breaking the grains. I'm preventing it from burning. It won't burn if you trust the process. I don't trust easily, Miss Okafor. I've noticed." She reached around him to adjust the heat, suddenly very aware of how close they were standing. "Try now." He did. The rice began to transform, the tomato base thickening, the spices blooming, everything coming together in that alchemical way that made cooking feel like magic. "It's working," he said, surprised. "Because you listened. Because you knew what you were talking about." He turned his head, and suddenly they were inches apart. Close enough that she could see the exact pattern of his irises, smell the cedar of his cologne mixed with cooking spices, feel the heat radiating from his body. Neither moved. "Amara," he said, and her name in his mouth sounded like a prayer and a curse and a question all at once. "Don't. I'm not doing anything. You're thinking about it." "Yes." No denial. No deflection. Just raw honesty that stole her breath. "Every time I see you, I think about it. And then I remind myself that you're here because I forced your hand. That anything between us would be tainted by that power imbalance. That you deserve better than a man with blood on his hands. Jae-sung. But it doesn't stop me from wanting." His voice was barely a whisper. "It doesn't stop me from imagining what it would feel like if you wanted me to. Not because I could protect you. Not because you needed something from me. Just because." The vulnerability in his admission undid her. Amara's hand lifted. She hadn't decided to move it, but suddenly her palm was against his cheek, feeling the slight roughness of evening stubble, the warmth of his skin, the way he leaned infinitesimally into her touch like a man starving. "This is a terrible idea," she whispered. "The worst. You're dangerous. Extremely. I should walk away." "You should." Neither of them moved. The rice began to burn. Amara jerked back, grabbed the pot, killed the heat. Her hands shook as she salvaged what she could, very deliberately not looking at him. "Dinner's ruined. I don't care about the rice." "Well, I do." She forced brightness into her voice, forced the moment to pass. This was supposed to be your triumph. Your proof that you could make perfect jollof. Amara. Next week, she said firmly, we're making miso soup and pepper soup. Separately. In different parts of the kitchen. With appropriate distance. Silence. Then quietly. If that's what you want. It wasn't what she wanted. That was the problem. 2 weeks later, Richard So made his move. Amara arrived at Ife's table to find her restaurant's front window shattered, glass glittering across the sidewalk like malicious stars. Inside was worse, tables overturned, chairs broken, the walls spray-painted with vicious slurs that made her stomach turn. Marcus stood in the middle of the destruction, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. They came at closing, he said numbly. 5 guys. Bats and crowbars. I tried to stop them. You should have run. Amara's voice shook as she pulled out her phone. Called 911. Called her insurance. Called. Her finger hovered over Jae-sung's number. 1 call. That's all it would take. He'd handle it. Make it disappear. Exact revenge in ways she didn't want to imagine. She put the phone away. You're not calling him? Marcus stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Amara, this is exactly why you made that deal. Call him. No. Why the hell not? Because if she called him now, it proved Marcus right. Proved she was dependent. Proved that their Saturday dinners were transactional after all. That she couldn't stand on her own. That she needed him to be whole. I'm handling this myself, she said. She filed a police report. Paid for repairs out of her rapidly dwindling savings. Installed security cameras. Hired a night guard she couldn't afford. Jae-sung said nothing at their next dinner, but his eyes tracked over her with laser focus, cataloging the exhaustion in her face, the new lines of stress around her mouth, the bandages on her hands from cleaning up glass. You're angry, she said. I'm curious. He set down his chopsticks. Why didn't you call me? Because this is my problem. I made it my problem when I offered you protection. You offered. I didn't accept. Not for this. She met his eyes. The deal was you'd handled So's legal maneuvering. His permits, his paperwork, his bureaucratic pressure. Not whatever this was. This was an escalation. Violence. The kind of thing that should have been prevented. By you. Yes. So this is your failure. His jaw tightened. If you want to see it that way. I do. She was being cruel now, and she knew it, but the words kept coming. You promised to protect my restaurant. You didn't. Maybe your protection isn't worth as much as you think. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Be very careful, Amara. Or what? You'll stop protecting me? Seems like you already have. I could end Richard So tomorrow. Tonight. Within the hour. His voice went cold flat. The voice she imagined he used when ordering executions. I could make him disappear so completely that not even his family would remember his name. Is that what you want? No. Then what do you want? He stood, agitation finally cracking his controlled facade. You want protection but refuse to accept it when you need it most. You want my help but resent owing me. You want me to be honest but hate when I tell you uncomfortable truths. He moved closer, and she felt the air pressure change, felt the full force of his presence bearing down. What do you actually want from me, Amara? I want you to not be what you are. The words exploded out of her. I want to have these dinners without knowing you've killed people. I want to laugh at your jokes without remembering you're a criminal. I want to. She cut herself off, but too late. Want to what? Nothing. Say it. I want to touch you without it feeling like a betrayal of everything I believe in. Her chest heaved, eyes burning. I want to stop thinking about you. Stop looking forward to Saturdays. Stop lying awake wondering what would have happened if I'd kissed you when we were cooking that stupid rice. Silence crashed down between them. Jae-sung stared at her, something raw and hungry and almost desperate in his eyes. You think about kissing me. Everyone thinks about terrible ideas sometimes. Amara, don't. She held up a hand, tears threatening now. Don't say whatever you're about to say. Don't make this worse. We both know this can't go anywhere. You're a mobster. I'm trying to be a good person. Those things don't mix. You think I don't know that? His voice cracked slightly. You think I haven't spent every Saturday reminding myself why I can't have you? Why someone like you deserves better than someone like me? Then why do you keep coming? Because I'm selfish. He laughed, bitter and broken. Because 2 hours a week feeling human is worth the torture of knowing that's all I'll ever get. The confession shattered what was left of her defenses. Amara closed the distance between them. Didn't let herself think. Just moved. She kissed him like she was angry, because she was. Angry at him for being everything she couldn't have. Angry at herself for wanting him anyway. Angry at the universe for making desire this complicated. He responded instantly, hands coming up to frame her face with unexpected gentleness, even as he kissed her back with barely leashed hunger. He tasted like the soju they'd shared, smelled like cedar and spice, felt like every bad decision she'd ever wanted to make wrapped in cashmere and danger. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. "I can't do this," Amara whispered. "I know. We can't. I know. Jae-sung, I'll handle it so." His hands were still on her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Not because you owe me. Not as part of our arrangement. But because he hurt you, and that's unacceptable." His eyes were molten dark. "And then we're done. No more dinners. No more pretending this can be something it's not. That's for the best." "Yes." Neither of them moved. "You should go," she finally said. He did. But at the door, he turned back. "For what it's worth, Amara, you made me want to be better. That's more than anyone else has managed in 10 years. Then he was gone, and she was alone with the taste of him still on her lips and the certainty that she'd just made both the best and worst decision of her life. Richard So withdrew his development plans 3 days later. The news hit every real estate publication. Unexpected retirement, citing health reasons, all current projects terminated. Effective immediately. Amara knew Jae-sung's work when she saw it. She also knew what it cost. Not just So's capitulation, but the finality of it. The message sent. The protection enacted. The end of their arrangement. Saturday came and went. No dinner. No text. Nothing. Amara told herself it was relief she felt. Not loss. Not aching, hollow absence where anticipation used to live. She threw herself into the restaurant. Developed new dishes. Expanded catering. Hired another line cook. Filled her hours so completely that she didn't have time to think about dark eyes and careful hands, and the way Jae-sung said her name like it meant something. Marcus watched her with concern but stayed quiet. Smart man. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. On the 4th Saturday, a delivery arrived at Ife's table. Large wooden crate, no return address. Amara opened it with trembling hands. Inside, every ingredient she'd need to make kimchi jjigae and egusi soup. Premium quality, perfectly fresh, along with a handwritten note in precise, beautiful script. "Thank you for teaching me that power without purpose is just cruelty. I'm working on the second promise now." JM, she cried into the bok choy for 5 full minutes. That evening, she texted him. "Dinner. Next Saturday. My apartment. 8 p.m. His response came immediately. "Are you sure?" She wasn't. But she typed yes anyway. Jae-sung arrived at exactly 8 p.m., holding flowers. Not birds of paradise this time. Simple sunflowers, bright and honest and unpretentious. "Yunho's idea?" Amara asked, taking them. "Mine actually." He said the birds of paradise were too much. The corner of his mouth lifted. "I'm learning." She'd spent all day cooking. Not a test this time. Not a challenge. Just food, the kind Grandma Ife used to make on special occasions. Comfort food meant to nourish the soul as much as the body. They ate on her small balcony overlooking 142nd Street, the neighborhood alive with evening sounds, and for the first time since they'd met, the silence between them was comfortable. "I did something," Jae-sung said finally. "I want you to know about it." Amara's hands stilled on her fork. "What did you do?" "I started a foundation. For small business owners in my territory. Interest-free loans. Legal help. Protection from predatory developers. The legitimate kind of protection, with lawyers and paperwork, not threats." He wasn't looking at her, staring instead at the city sprawl. "It's not much. It doesn't erase what I've done. But it's purpose instead of revenge. Jae-sung, you were right." He turned to face her. "That day in the kitchen, I'd corrupted my mother's wish. Spent 10 years building an empire on fear because I was too angry to build anything else." His voice roughened. "And then you looked at me like I could be more than that. Like maybe wanting to be better was enough to start actually being better. You don't have to change for me. I'm not. I'm changing for me." He reached across the small table, palm up, offering, not taking. "But you made me want to try. That matters." Amara stared at his hand. Scarred knuckles. Long fingers. The same hand that had framed her face with impossible gentleness, that had probably ended lives, that now trembled slightly as it waited for her decision. She thought about Grandma Ife, who'd taught her that people were complicated. That good and bad weren't binary. That love required courage more than purity. She thought about Saturday nights and terrible decisions, and the way her heart kicked every time he said her name. She thought about Marcus's warning. Men like him don't change. Maybe not. But maybe trying to change was enough. Maybe choosing to be better every day against every instinct. Maybe that was its own kind of redemption. Amara put her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, careful and sure, and something in his face cracked open. Relief and hope and naked vulnerability that made her chest ache. "I can't promise this will work," she said quietly. "I can't promise I won't hate myself sometimes for choosing this. For choosing you." "I know," he whispered. "I can't promise to ignore what you are. What you've done. I wouldn't want you to. And I'm keeping the restaurant. My independence. My right to walk away if this becomes something I can't live with." "Amara." He brought her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles that felt like a vow. "I don't want to own you. I want to know you. There's a difference." "Is there? With men like you?" "I don't know. Honest as always. But I'd like to find out. If you'll let me." She should say no. Should protect herself, her business, her heart. Should remember that fairy tales where the girl saves the monster never end well in real life. But his thumb was tracing circles on her palm, and his eyes held hers with an intensity that made her feel seen in ways she'd forgotten were possible, and Grandma Ife's voice whispered in her memory. "Life is risk, my dear daughter. The only real failure is refusing to live it." "Saturday dinners," Amara said. "Here, at my place. You cook with me. No guards, no business talk, no power plays." "Agreed. And you keep funding that foundation. Keep trying to be better. I don't need perfect, Jae-sung, but I need effort. You'll have it. And if you ever lie to me about anything important, we're done." "I understand." She leaned across the table, close enough to see the rapid flutter of his pulse at his throat, to watch his eyes darken with want and restraint and something that might have been love if they were brave enough to name it. "Then kiss me," she said. "And let's find out if monsters can learn to be men." He did. And in the golden evening light, with the smell of home-cooked food and sunflowers and possibilities surrounding them, Amara Okafor chose risk over safety, hope over certainty, and the complicated, messy, beautiful reality of loving someone who was trying to be better. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was an honest one. And sometimes that was enough.